live with a new episode of the PerfectCast. This is your host, Bruce Matson, and I got another guest for us today. You know, I've been rebooting the show, bringing in guests every week, and I got one of my pals from DLF. This guy I've known for I feel like forever, but I really met him kind of face-to-face on the interwebs today. But we've been in leagues and stuff together, and you can find him on Twitter at Dodson NFL. And obviously from the Twitter handle, you know his name is Drew Dodson. He's a staff writer for DLF. He's got a podcast called Dynasty Playbook. He's like me. He starts it, stops it, reboots it. But we're all chill here in the space, talking it up. But Drew's here right now. What's up, man? What's going on?
Not a whole lot. I mean, you got two Drews in a row. I feel like it's a good policy.
Yeah, back to back.
Man, we've known each other for a good half a decade now. Time flies, but it's crazy that we're just now seeing each other face to face. I've always, been a big fan of your work. To be honest, it's your work primarily that inspired me to go from just being purely on the film side to being like, okay, maybe we need to start considering these numbers because he seems to make pretty good points with them. Maybe I should consider it. And he tends to be pretty smart.
Oh, thank you. I didn't notice I was hitting on some people. Thank you.
But I'm super excited to be here. Like you mentioned, I have my own podcast, but it's been on hiatus as I've been doing some personal life stuff that's taken up a whole bunch of time. It's going to be a little bit longer till it comes back. So if you're subscribing, don't expect any episodes anytime soon. But in terms of what I do with DLF, I'm primarily an IDP writer. I do my rankings for IDP, but I dabble in writing for offense too. And I'd like to start dabbling in more in the Devy space because, DLF can always use some more Devy folks.
Devy is a great place too. It's fun because there's so much more to talk about and discuss, and it's even more strategy from the high school guys, whether 5-star guys or worth your investment versus 4-star guys, the programs, marketplace. There's just so much to cover, and it just broadens the stratosphere when it comes to strategy.
Absolutely. Even just looking at do I draft a 2022 player that I'm going to have in a year? And maybe his ceiling's not quite as high as the 5-star freshman I could be drafted now, but who knows what the career arc for this freshman's going to look like? And it's a much bigger gamble with a much potential higher payoff. So it really just creates a lot of variety, and it's really fun. It adds, it adds another layer to it. Just like IDP adds another layer to it. Anything I can do to make fantasy just more work for me.
Yeah, I kind of divvy up my year in seasons. So I'm kind of like in my rookie draft season. And once we get past the draft, I'll get into my Devy season. That's when I'll get back into that. I'll be heavy into Devy till the season starts. And then it'll be a mix of Devy and DFS. And then once we hit November, December, it's back to rookie draft till April.
DFS is still that great white whale that I have yet to conquer. It's, I've dabbled in it a little bit here and there when, DraftKings or whatever was doing bonuses and all that. But I need to have a real bankroll to get into it to really do it right. That's the thing. So, hopefully this new business venture I'm working on the side will be productive enough and I can have some fun with some DFS because I know plenty of people that are pretty smart in the space that I feel like I can glean some good information from.
Yeah. So how I started doing DFS is I had no clue what it really was, and I saw people making money talking about it and stuff, and I was like, you know what? I want to learn about this, and I just started digesting a lot of content and stuff, and I never really got good at it. I got good enough where I was winning some weeks, and I was more up and down, up and down, up and down. And usually when the season ends, I'm usually a 500 guy, I'm splitting even. But it really depends on how you want to play it too. If you want to play cash games, head to heads, or if you want to play tournaments. And usually starting off like head-to-heads and cash games are like your best bet. But I love the thrill of the tournaments and being in those big it's just fun. So I just play those, and I just have like I'll lose a bunch of weeks in a row, and then I'll just have that 1 week where I hit, and I'll cover those, and I'll make a little bit, and then I'll lose some more, and then I'll hit, lose some more, and hit, and then by the end of the year I'm about even, maybe down a bit or up a bit. It's really just a wash to me.
That reminds me that feels like when I go to the casino. I actually was at the casino last night, and they give me all this free play for the slot machines, and I don't play slots. Like I'm a blackjack guy. Sit me on a table and just let me burn away $10 at a time. But I found this one slot where it's like you win free rolls and you press the buttons and match these tiles, and you get 30 free rolls. And I'm just watching it, and I hit big, so I'm gonna waste another $50 worth of free plates and get some more free rolls. And it all feeds that dopamine addiction. It's a terrible, terrible cycle, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. I like hold them at the casinos. I'm not good at it because I rarely go, but it's just fun to pretend I'm on World Stars of Poker or whatever, and raise and stuff, and try to manipulate things, and eventually lose all my money. But if I'm going to lose my money, I'd rather have fun doing it. So I'd rather play the games I have fun at.
Yeah. I enjoy blackjack, so that's why I play it. Because I know the rules. I know what you're supposed to do. I know that, the best way to reduce the house's advantage as much as you can. I learned how to play not roulette, craps. That's a complicated game to learn and to do the right things at. But my buddy's just got this like Rain Man luck, and he learned the rules about 50% of what I did, and he just went out there and just started raking in the cash. I'm like, come on, man, you're making me look stupid. So I don't take him to the casino anymore, because then he'll go to the blackjack table with me, and he'll just piss off the whole table, just breaking every rule. And then because blackjack players are super superstitious about that. Like, if you take a hit when you're not supposed to, and then the dealer gets a lower card and they beat you, the whole table gets pissed off at him, even though let him play his game. But they get super upset about it. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, I could talk about ridiculousness at the casino all day, but I know the first thing we wanted to talk about actually kind of goes back to an article I just wrote about JuJu Smith-Schuster. And you and I chatted about this a little bit before the show. Everybody seems to be kind of jumping ship on JuJu, and he's still at a fairly respectable ADP. He's sitting there right around wide receiver 19, but he was like the wide receiver 2 or 3 or 4 at one point after his 2018 season. And it's just everybody, wants to hone in on the fact that Antonio Brown left. So now, the number one cornerbacks are playing against JuJu, when in reality, what happened was he went into the 2019 season. He had a fairly good game week 1 against what ended up being a historically good New England defense in 2019. And then in week 2, Big Ben goes down, and they get Delvin Hodges and Mason Rudolph for the rest of the season. And he managed to have an even better yards per reception average. And he had just what should have statistically been a good season, not a great season, but a good season. But he got injured. The knee injury just took him right out, and he came back too early from it, I think. And then something that a lot of people kind of don't keep track of, because he was always listed as probable, but for almost the entire 2020 season, he missed the first practice of every week with a knee injury, and they constantly throughout the season had to drain his knee so that he could play. So that knee injury was continuing to bother him throughout all of 2020, and he still managed to put up almost 1,000 yards and almost double-digit touchdowns, leading him to have, a mid-wide receiver 2 season, which for somebody who didn't get 1,000 yards is pretty respectable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not sitting here claiming that, in 2021, he's going to have this breakout year, because Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson are very good wide receivers. And the only reason why Juju and Big Ben Juju and Big Ben and Antonio Brown had such a good season in 2018 is because Ben threw for 5,000 yards plus. It ended up being like the 7th all time for a season's passing, and all the rest of them were owned by Drew Brees, because he just, for like 6 years, just threw the ball to Jimmy Graham and Darren Sproles and just racked up yards, even though it never got us in playoffs, except for in 2011, where we got robbed by Alex Smith. I'm not still butthurt about that, but Juju's got a 1-year prove-it deal. I think if he gives this knee time to heal this offseason, I mean, these NFL players have some of the best doctors available in the country. If his knee's going to get better, I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty soon, because he knows that he didn't perform at the level he can this last season. Because I went back and I watched his 2018 tape compared to his 2020, and just the burst and the acceleration is just not there. It's so clear that this knee is hindering him as a player. But there's still, he's still one of the most mentally aware wide receivers in the game. I don't know that there's, more than a handful of wide receivers that are better at finding holes in zone than he is. He reacts great to the scramble drill. He's got really a lot of what you want in a prime wide receiver. There was a lot of reasons why we loved him as a wide receiver, after 2018, when people were crowning him as the next big thing. Don't give up on that. So if you can acquire him fairly cheaply, you could see a nice return on investment next year when he signs somewhere for a long-term contract, because he's only going to be 25 in 2022. That's still plenty young enough for a wide receiver. And that's my long spiel and rant. So I'm gonna let you tell me what you think about that, Bruce.
I really like Juju still to this day. I was really high on him coming in 2018, and before his rookie season, when he was coming out for the draft, I thought he was very underrated and should have been more valued among the consensus. I mean, just going back to his older profile, he broke out at 18 years old, and he was a bigger wide receiver at 215 pounds. Good dominator rating, 56th percentile, 31.9% dominator rating. And when you look at his numbers in 2018, there's a big disparity there. And the air yards definitely dropped, so he wasn't getting those deeper targets. But one thing that points out when you look at his advanced metrics, and then you think about the knee issues that he was having in 2020, was his yards after the catch. His yak in 2018 during his boom season had 648 yards after the catch versus 417 in 2020. So if he's more explosive this year, he can be up to those levels. And then another thing I think that we're very underrating him on is that he's only 3 receptions from having 100 passes caught. With if he was triple digits in receptions in 2020, we're talking about a different player, because that would have just illuminated his stat. And then he's one touchdown from double touchdowns. So, and he's close to a 1,000-yard receiver. So it's not like he's this doom and gloom player. He had a pretty decent season for what he was.
Right. It's just the problem is he just sets expectations so high after 2018 that people, you didn't get 1,500 yards out of him, so he's a bust.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just it's not realistic. I mean, it wasn't realistic to expect that out of him, even with a healthy Ben, even with a healthy Juju. I mean, hopefully he get 1,400, but I think 1,200 is way more realistic of what he's capable of doing with a regular passing offense, but not with Claypool and Deontay there, especially with them garnering the deep targets, because a lot of the air yards that he racked up in 2018 was because he was being used as a deep target in 2018. because he had the speed and the quickness to get past guys on the outside. He wasn't being used primarily in the slot with Antonio there, because Antonio Brown did a lot of work out of the slot. But I think, and honestly, I think a lot of people ignored the metrics as him coming out of a prospect, because they did this thing. They see him in a USC uniform, and I don't know why draft people love doing this, but they associate one position with one school. And if enough people have failed from that position, from a particular school, they just dub it, a graveyard. And this was before Robert Woods really kind of broke out and showed that USC wide receivers can be successful. I think Michael Pittman's going to do a good job of, establishing at least some level of success. I'm not saying he's going to be a wide receiver one or anything, but he's going to show that he can be a successful wide receiver from USC. And even Nelson Aguilar came out and had a great season this last year for what he was. And that's, maybe me just bringing up Nelson Aguilar so I can finally revel in a little bit of being right after 5 years. I maybe was a little bit in love with Nelson Aguilar as a prospect.
USC's got some guys coming up. Drake Landon is a prospect that I have an eye on that I think he'll have a big rise. So it's not – I kind of get it, because I don't know why people scout the helmet and not the player. And I think it's just more of a bias type deal that people's just got to break out of when it comes to evaluating these players.
Absolutely. And another USC wide receiver that's really not getting a lot of buzz this offseason is Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think he's going to end up flying under and getting underdrafted in a lot of places, and he's going to pay off for those guys who grab him. I was a fan of him last year. I had him at one point as high as being over Jalen Waddle going into the 2020 season. That was primarily just me being low on Waddle because of his size, more so than being super high on St. Brown. But I'm still quite high on him. I like him more than Seth Williams. I think I like him still more than Elijah Moore. But I think he's going to be, quite a capable wide receiver at the next level.
Yeah, like when we were talking off air, when I said I want to spray and pray in the second round of rookie drafts on these wide receivers, he's one of the guys I was thinking of. Early breakout age, broke out with a 25.09% market share, at least what this sheet I have says, and just consistently produced in that mid-tier 20% level throughout his career. And his films checks out. He's very technically sound and quick. It's in and out of his breaks. That's a good thing that you want when it comes from a prospect, somebody who's very nuanced in their play.
And you know what? That's probably why he appeals to me so much. That's a very specific niche of player, the technically sound guys that may not have the best athletic profile. But to me, the guys who are athletically sound are safer picks because they may not have the same ceiling, but I'm way more likely to have them on my roster in 4 or 5 years still producing and being able to start them, even if they're not giving me wide receiver 1 weeks on a regular basis. It's a different way of running your team. Obviously, you have to take some gambles because at some point you have to have some wide receiver 1s on your team. But if I see a surefire guy, and we're going to get to one later who I think is another guy that's primed to be one of the safest picks, not only in this draft, but out of most recent wide receivers. I think these are just the guys I'm gravitated towards. Like Tyler Boyd was another one. Tyler Boyd was extremely technically proficient when he came out. He wasn't by far anywhere near being an athletically astounding wide receiver.
Yeah.
But he just did everything well. And coaches will work with that. Coaches will make things happen for that wide receiver, even if they can't break the game.
Yeah, he serves a purpose. I love Tyler Boyd. I think he's an underrated asset for what he is in the fantasy football space because he's just dependable. You know what you're going to get. And just coming out, like I loved watching him in the interviews and stuff because he seems like he has a lot of dog in him, very determined. And at Pitt, he had a lot of records there, right? And very productive as well.
And Pitt had Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, it's not like they had some scrubs coming through there before him. So Tyler Boyd is really, I mean, granted, it's a lot more of a pass-heavy league, especially even in the college game than it was when Larry went through. But to be able to take out some of his records is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and then the Devy space back then, when he was in college, he was considered the wide receiver 1/2 guy for a couple years too, before out for the draft.
He was my wide receiver 1 going into that draft, all the way through the process. And you know, Michael Thomas is now one of my favorite players in the league, and he's, granted, I'm a Saints fan, so it's real hard to wonder why, but I had Tyler Boyd ranked over Michael Thomas, and at one point I also said that the Southern Miss Mike Thomas may have been the good Michael Thomas, but we're not going to talk about that.
I said that too. That was good times back then, though.
But that was my real homer take, because Southern Miss is my alma mater. So,
oh yeah.
Now I only get to root for Nick Mullins and hoping that he gets to continually beat out Jimmy Garoppolo. But now that doesn't matter because San Francisco's going to draft a quarterback, and they're going to just – I hope they take Mac Jones. So that way he gets so overdrafted and I don't have to worry about taking him, because I don't want Mac Jones on any of my teams. And if he goes to San Francisco, I'm not going to be tempted to draft him on any of my teams.
That's true. I like Mac Jones, like NFL wise, yeah, he's fine and stuff, but for fantasy wise, like he doesn't give me the rushing production. He doesn't give me that gusto I want for making me want to draft him. I want guys that can give me a little bit of that Konami code, because that's where the top tier is headed towards.
Right. If you can't give me that Konami code, which, I mean, even Joe Burrow can do, you know, people really underestimated him on that. If you can't do them on that, you need to be a pristine pocket passer. Kind of like Sam Howell coming out next year. I don't know how much of his rushing production is really going to translate, but he's got a real arm on him, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that's still worth taking, even if he doesn't have the rushing upside. But Mac Jones is not that. Mac Jones is going to be Andy Dalton plus, which will be fine as like a QB2 in Superflex, but I'm not paying the 103 in a rookie draft to get him. It's just it's a foolish use of capital.
It'd be a good spot to trade back in and just be able to get multiple picks of maybe like to back out the first round or something like that, and just spray and pray on other prospects you like at wide receiver and running back.
Trey Lance, get you some Trey Lance.
Trey Lance, yeah, man,
you want rushing upside?
Yeah,
there's some rushing upside.
He'll just run through faces and just drag guys. That one play, that one highlight where he's just dragging a pile like Matt Asiata, it just gets you excited, and you know that's a guy you want to take a swing on, whether it hits or miss in Dynasty, because that Konami code factor.
Trey Lance has been a guy like as pretty much as soon as we started seeing that end of that 2019 season, I was already in. My Debbie senses were tingling. I got him in all but one draft, and the only draft I didn't get him in was because I was in the league with another guy who's a friend of mine, and I was chatting about him a little too much, and he snagged him out from under me.
Oh.
But every other Debbie league I'm in, I have Trey Lance, and I'm so excited to see what he's going to do at the next level.
Yeah, I'm definitely all in on him. I'm willing to pay the price, take the risk. It's worth it to me, because what I see from him as a passer is enough for me, and then that rushing ability, if that hits, that's going to be golden.
Yep, I mean, to be a true freshman and have the decision, or he was a redshirt freshman, but to be a freshman and have the decision-making ability to not throw a single interception in your entire first season playing, you know, some of them, you know, he got lucky. They might have been picks, but that's worth noting.
What you feel about Zach Wilson?
See, Zach Wilson is a guy it's really going to depend, because Robert Saleh is a defensive head coach. So I don't know a ton about his defensive coordinator. They've got some better weapons than the Jets have had recently in terms of receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll draft somebody to go with Mims and Corey Davis, and Keelan Cole just went there. So they'll have some options. And is Jameson Crowder still there? Because I know at one point they were talking about potentially cutting him. So there's some real options that he could develop with. They need a real alpha, but I think he's probably the riskiest guy that's not. I mean, I say risky. He's about as risky as Herbert was last year, I think, is a good comparison for him. He's worth drafting because at some point, and I mean, if he's taken by the Jets, it's not even at some point. He's going to start right away. They just traded their starting quarterback. They're not going to go roll out Joe Flacco. Excuse me. So a starting quarterback is worth a ton in Superflex. It's going to almost immediately be worth a first plus just to a team who needs a starting quarterback. And if he starts off hot like Herbert did, you can name your price. You can ride that hype train all day long. And granted, I don't know how much I buy into it, but even Chad Parsons put out a thing that says he has got a source close to Jacksonville saying that he might be the pick in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I saw him post that. I was pretty intrigued. I don't know if I 100% believe it, but like you kind of want to entertain it. And there's a lot of hype around him too. So,
I mean, I can't imagine it would be like you almost have to think that they sold Urban Meyer on the head coaching gig with the idea that you're going to get to work with Trevor Lawrence. Like you want to have the next best prospect since Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck. Like, here's your guy. You know, if you can't win with him, you're not going to win with anybody.
That's true. That's kind of how I see it too.
So, like, Zach Wilson may have technically higher upside, but there's a lot more risk to it. And Urban Meyer has not exactly developed quarterbacks past what their limitations are. I mean, we all saw how good Tim Tebow did, and I mean, that's pretty much the epitome. I mean,
yeah, Cardell
J.T. Barrett. Cardinal Jones.
Shotgun. His XFL.
You know what? He almost tricked us all into thinking, he's going to come back to the NFL and be worth something. Just like Donald Parham did at the tight end position. I'm still holding him, especially now that Hunter Henry is in New England. I'm hoping those Parham shares I stashed all over the bottom of my roster are going to pay off.
Yeah, I know. He's just a sexy player to want to own. He's dirt cheap. He's fun, small school prospect, XFL guy. It's just that road paved. Yeah, that road paved to get to where he's at. Even is just intriguing. So he's a guy to root for. Even the Zach Wilson thing, though, it's very polarizing to me because at first I don't like him, and then I see some tape and I'm like, I kind of like him, and then I'm like, I see some things and I'm like, I kind of don't like him, and then I see like how he can like zip the ball out there, throw it on a needle. And I like that. And I was like, man, he's kind of like a high end developmental guy. Like if he takes some steps forward, he could be something, but I don't know if I want, I know 2QB, you got to pay for your quarterbacks, but like, do I want to take that gamble or not type deal?
I mean, if it came down to Mac Jones or Zach Wilson, to me, it's not a question. Like, I would actually probably take Zach Wilson over Justin Fields too at this point. Trey Lance, it would depend on the landing spot because I love Trey Lance so much. But Zach Wilson, I mean, he's like you said it. He has the arm talent. If he got with a quarterback coach that really could refine the footwork, because that's so much of it is the footwork. If you start from the waist to the feet and get that all going, improve the accuracy. And I mean, we've seen quarterbacks with way weaker arms do way more if they were accurate and they made their reads well. And he's shown the ability to make good reads, but then he's also, within the same 20 minutes, just shown the ability to freeze trying to make his reads. And it's confusing. Like I hate walking away from grading a prospect and being like, well, he sometimes does this. I hate writing a sometimes or has a tendency or I want to be able to say for sure one way or the other, or under what situations a player does X. And Zach Wilson just does not make me confident in any decision I make about when his decision making is consistent or when it's on point or when it's not. But if he can get that squared away, he could easily be a QB1 for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. Going back towards our show sheet a little bit, and I kind of threw this on there because you're an LSU guy, and I kind of wanted to know your thoughts on it. And the polarizing player from last year's class is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. A lot of people are kind of like lower on him because he didn't hit that God status he was bestowed upon last year. But there's some tantalizing things in his profile, and since you're an LSU guy, I really want to hear your opinion on him.
There's got to be something special, regardless of however good the coaches he's played with, because the offensive coordinator that's now with the Panthers was our offensive assistant in LSU, and Andy Reid's a genius offensive mind. They clearly saw something in him that they could use. He came out of nowhere and started over 3 4-star prospects at LSU at running back. And all 3 are now in this crazy 3-headed monster that they can't decide who their starting running back is. But he was far and away good enough to say he's our starter. They were able to do so much with him at LSU, but I think a lot of that is because, like I told you before the show, even the best teams in the college football landscape, like in Alabama, their defensive line, their linebacker is not completely loaded with NFL talent. Some of these players are guys that are going to go on to be buff-ass accountants and just jaded-ass construction workers after they leave Alabama. So that left some holes that CEH could get through at the goal line and still work and, produce some sort of touchdown upside. At the next level, at the NFL level, you don't stay as a starter for very long if you're not a solid talent or above. Like, there are very few marginal or adequate level players that consistently start in the NFL. And I'm looking at you, Sean Williams. I don't know how you stayed starting for 3 years, but that's a grudge that I'll never get past. I don't know why I don't like Sean Williams so much, but just there are so many players that are just at a good enough level that keep him from being able to break through the offensive line or through the defensive line and accumulating those touchdowns. That means they need to manufacture touches for him as a receiver and utilize him in open space the best way that he's capable of doing. And I think part of the problem is there's just such a wealth of talent with Tyreek Hill and with Travis Kelce. I mean, these guys are both leaders in offensive statistics. At some point, something's got to break, and somebody's going to have to not get enough. And this year was CEH, and maybe that was because they didn't have a full season to really implement everything they had planned for him. So maybe there's some hope. But at the same time, even without everything they potentially wanted to implement for him, he was still, I think, the RB14 in PPR. Like, that's super respectable. Had he not been the 101, if he had been taken as the 104 or the 105, where he was ranked pre-draft, behind either Swift or Akers, people would be pretty satisfied with an RB14 finish in his rookie year. But because they drafted him over JT and J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift and even Cam Akers, they're all looking a lot more attractive as potential RB1s going forward as soon as this year. CEH could see that ceiling. I mean, he very well could. We've seen Andy Reid do it with LaShawn McCoy. And granted, CEH isn't the same type of athletic profile that LaShawn McCoy is, but he also brings a little bit of nimbleness that LaShawn McCoy didn't have either. You get him in open space, you manufacture him the touches, and you let him get yards after the catch. Plain and simple. I mean, use him like LSU. Use him like the Saints use Darren Sproles. Use him like the Eagles use Darren Sproles. I mean, he doesn't have to be a 200 carry between the tackles running back. Get a spell, use him like the Bengals should have used Gio Bernard.
Yeah.
They should have increased his touches. Gio should have been spelling Joe Mixon, keeping him fresh, and giving Andy Dalton at the time a real release option to get out quick because the offensive line has been pitiful for quite some time. That's what you do when you make CEH usable. And, I mean, he's never going to be the RB1 or the RB2 or the RB3, but he could very well be a low-end RB1 for much of his career if they decide that they want to use him in the ways that complement his skill set. Because Joe Brady figured it out. I mean, he can't be the only guy in the entire football landscape that knows what to do with CEH. They wouldn't have drafted him in the first round if they didn't think there was something they could do with him. So I have to think there's still some untapped potential there that we haven't seen.
Mm-hmm. I like his price tag where he's fell, but below God status. People are kind of down on him. I want to buy him now because I like his ADP where he's been going at in drafts. Combine that with his age, his receiving ability, team he's on, it makes him an easy buy low for this year and beyond in Dynasty. It's just a smart move now, especially compared to last year.
Right. It's very similar to the JuJu situation, not in the actual situation between them, but in the way their ADP is reflective of not what their ceiling actually can be. And so it's just it presents a nice buy low opportunity. And even if he doesn't increase in value, he's not going to decrease much further than where he's at if he continues to produce at high RB2 levels. Like there's a reason those guys are still valued highly. There's not a huge difference between like the RB8 and the RB15. There's in points per game, I'd be willing to wager it's less than 3 points per game in PPR.
Mm-hmm. And then his age, you just got that asset for a while. When running backs, they kind of shell out on you at a short or a quicker rate. You know you're going to have them for a few years, which adds to his value on top of what you're paying for him.
Right. And these next 2 years after 2021, we're going to be looking at some shallow running back classes, even more shallow than this one. Next year, we have pretty much Breece Hall coming out of Iowa State and maybe Isaiah Spiller, who is like a second-tier guy. But there's not a ton of elite options coming out right away. Eric Gray may turn into something. We're still kind of, the jury's still out on him. Yeah. And then 2023 obviously is still so far away that a lot of people could break out in the meantime. So don't take that as gospel. But having a young guy that's going to be, still remaining as one of the elite young guys for the next couple of years, you only have such a short window with running backs anyways. So get them while they're young, use them while you can, and bail out when they're aged out.
Yep. Yeah. I like to sell a year too early than a year too late. So I like to look at that threshold and bail and retool, reset the clock.
Though CEH probably out of this entire class will probably last the longest in the NFL because of his play style.
Yeah, definitely. And he's not getting like a heavy usage early too.
Right. Like JT and DeAndre Swift and Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins a little less because he's slightly elusive, and Swift too, but Akers and JT especially are probably going to be – the tires are going to be starting to wear thin by the end of that first contract, I'd be willing to bet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially what we've been seeing from them early on in their careers. Keeping on the LSU thing or the LSU theme and going into some rookie talk, one of the guys have been talked up a lot around the Twitter circles has been Terrace Marshall. So I've been very interested. I've been up and down with him throughout my rankings because I've been trying to find a spot for him. Like a lot of these players, it's hard to find a good concrete spot to really have them ranked, have a solid place for them. And Terrace Marshall is one of those guys. Like I like him. Like I think he's a very good player, but I don't know where to really put him because I like a lot of players in this draft as well, especially at the wide receiver position. Where do you have him? How do you feel about him?
My issue with this draft class is after my top two, it is probably more than any year that I've done Dynasty, landing spot dependent and draft capital dependent. Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Terrace Marshall, even Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I mean after that, I feel like there's a solid tier break for me, unless I'm forgetting somebody, which I'm sure I am. But the fact that there's two LSU wide receivers and there's two Alabama wide receivers in the top 4, 5, 6 wide receivers in a class is just bonkers. But Terrace Marshall, a lot of people really want to shit on him because he had such a late breakout age. I mean, 20 is still a solid breakout age one way or the other. And I'm even going to poo-poo a little bit on a point you made in one of your videos that his market share in his final season this last year was roughly 20%, but he only played in 7 games and then opted out for the remainder of the season due to COVID. He didn't have it, luckily, but in that 7 games that he played with a carousel of quarterbacks, he had 3 different quarterbacks for 7 games. LSU has no idea what they're doing right now at quarterback, and it's the same as it was. Besides the 1 year we've had Burrow, I can't remember the last time Matt Flynn was the last time we were real consistent and confident in who our starting quarterback was. I mean, we had not Justin Jefferson, his brother. I can't. All I remember is we didn't get past the Alabama 50-yard line in that national championship in New Orleans that 1 year, and it just. I drank myself into a blackout that night. I mean, like, you want to talk about embarrassing yourselves. It's not like when Tampa Bay shut down Kansas City this year. We didn't do anything with that guy. And we still managed to make it to the national championship. But really, Matt Flynn, Jamarcus Russell were the last time we had really consistent quarterback play. And still, we've managed to, I keep saying we, but LSU has still managed to put out just this bevy of wide receiver talent over the last, 6 or 7 years. OBJ, Jarvis Landry, DJ Chark, we've got Justin Jefferson, we've now got Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall coming out, and Boye or I have no idea how to say it. Boutte. I have no idea how to say his name. I haven't been watching the broadcast. I've been watching it on all 22 with no broadcast sound. So I haven't heard anybody say his name. So I probably butchered that. So, and that's terrible coming from somebody who lives down here. But and Eric Gilbert. I mean, he may not be a wide receiver, but Eric Gilbert left. But rest in peace. But hopefully he finds somewhere he can settle at because he didn't end up staying at Florida. Which, thank God. I would hate to watch Pitts destroy us, and then watch Eric Gilbert do it the next season. But just regardless, we just play past the bad quarterback play and continue to put out good wide receivers. And Terrace Marshall is absolutely one of them. Terrace Marshall doesn't have the elite ceiling that a guy like Jamar Chase does, or potentially Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle does. Oh, the guy I forgot that's in the top that I didn't think to add was Rondale Moore. That's who I knew I was leaving somebody out. But he's just solid all the way around. Really, the biggest detriment in his game that just drives me crazy is watching him run block, because he's just not good at it. He just throws himself at running at defenders. Sometimes he just misses altogether and just dives into the ground. It's pretty funny. If you put some Benny Hill music on and watch it, it's quite the comedic event. But in terms of his footwork to set up DBs is pretty precise for being a guy that's still in college. Wide receiver coaches are going to see that and have a lot to work with. He's got really good awareness. He's he depending on his route, he does a really good job of sinking his hips stopping in place and then just jetting right back off. I mean, I watched him just put a defender on his ass just by straight up stopping in the middle of the route and just shooting right back down the middle of the field. He does take this weird half false step when he bursts off the line of scrimmage, which maybe they'll work that out. But even if they're not, he's still burning guys down the field. His yak ability is... I've seen really conflicting thoughts. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I also based a lot of my evaluation off of 2019 and working with Joe Burrow because I wanted to see what it looked like operating under a fully efficient offense. But he had really good yak numbers in 2020, and I don't know if that's just because they were selling out to stop the run, and so there were less DBs in the backfield, or if it was just he was more elusive this year, or he just had more opportunities to do it. But I don't think that's going to be his calling card in the NFL like it's going to be for Rondale Moore or for Devonta Smith or even Jalen Waddle. His body control is on point, like absolutely excellent. It better be with 6'3". I mean, he's a huge catch radius.
Huge catch radius with speed. That's you
gotta love it. There's so much potential there, but if he's taken in the second round and 4 or 5 wide receivers go in the first round, I almost can't justify having him as my number 3 wide receiver. So that's why I say it's so important for us to know what draft capital and landing spot looks like. Landing spot a little less because the cream eventually rises to the top with landing spots, but if you're going to an offense that's run heavy and you're going to be a possession wide receiver, I'm going to dip you a little bit, but really it's the draft capital that's going to make a lot of these decisions for me.
Yeah. So I was, it was early in the process and I was listening. There's this show that I listen to. It's called The Draft Show. It's a Dallas Cowboys produced podcast. They had some former scouts on there talking, and it was early. It was like December, January. They were talking about the receivers, and he was like the first guy they mentioned, and they mentioned him being like one of the first round guys in the back half, and they were all over him. And then after that, early in the process, we saw big media mock draft him to the first round, and then they kind of went away with that. So it makes me feel like he's going to get like maybe high end second round draft capital. It feels right, but I'm not for sure. It's hard to tell because everything's been so weird with this class. So it's hard to project his draft capital.
I mean, I feel like we can pretty comfortably say at this point, I would be shocked if he landed outside of the top 50. It's just how much higher does he go than 50 is really what the question is. I've seen him a ton in the first round, but I've also seen him a good bit in the second round as well. But he's very highly regarded. It's just how many. It's kind of a pick your own poison with the wide receivers. We talked about this a little bit off the air. It's just we were so excited about this wide receiver class going into 2020. And more so than we have been for probably any wide receiver class since 2014, even more than the 2020 class itself. And it just seems like as we've gotten to this offseason, outside of Jamar Chase, and even Jamar Chase isn't a flawless prospect, everybody has some sort of asterisk next to their name that is some sort of flaw with their draft profile. You know, with Waddle and its height, with Smith, it's BMI. With Rondale Moore, it's injuries. With Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's, you know, can he be an alpha? It's just, and then with Rashad Bateman, who we're going to talk about in a bit, it's the fact that he had COVID and he has asthma. And, you know, my wife had COVID. She and I both had it around Thanksgiving, and she has asthma, and she's still experiencing the after effects of it now. And granted, he's going to have top tier medical care, but if he doesn't have, you know, really high draft capital, I'm going to take that as a sign that the NFL thinks it could be a long-term issue. And as much as I love Rashad Bateman, that would cause me to drop him because if you can't keep your breath and you're having to come off the field every 3 plays, that's going to eat into your playing time real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his draft capital has been really weird to speculate when I look at big media or like Lance Zierlein's rankings. He was really low on there. The grade he had wasn't what I was expecting. Like he was like barely a starter. He had as a grade like a 6 point something. And I think he had him ranked right behind Nico Collins. And I was like, that concerned me. I haven't seen him mocked at very high in a lot of drafts. I did hear Jeremiah.
Daniel Jeremiah.
Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah mentioned him on TV the other day as a second-round prospect. So that gave me some encouragement. But I haven't heard much from big media. That's been spooking me a little bit on Bateman. But I love them. I have him ranked real high. I even took him above Chase in some Devy drafts about a year ago. And one of my favorite prospects, and that's one thing that's been concerning me. Like, where's this draft capital going to be at for him?
Yeah, I mean, we're kindred spirits because going into the 2020 season, I had Rashad Bateman as my number 1 wide receiver over Jamar Chase. Now the weight issue, I mean, it's hardly an issue, but the weight being lower than what we thought it was going to be and the height being a little shorter than what we thought it was going to be is a little bit of a hit, and that's, it dings him. So Jamar Chase edges him out, but I can't tell you where I heard it because it's been so long, but I think around February or March timeline, I heard that, he's potentially a first-round draft pick. But we've heard that about almost every wide receiver that's highly regarded in this class. It's just there's only so many players to go around, and there's some really good defensive players in this class too. There's I would say there's 9 linebackers in this class I would take before I took the 4th running back in last year's class. It's and edge rushers is not great, but there's a real handful of them that are worth looking at. And then there's offensive line that, I mean, there's some top tier prospects, and at some point there's just not enough space for all these wide receivers to be first round picks. So it almost turns into what's the order, or how close are they in draft capital? Do 4 of them go in the top 16 and then another one doesn't go until 28 to 32 to 40? That's where I see a differentiation. But going back to Marshall, he could easily be that wide receiver 3 for me if he gets that. I know I kind of jumped to Bateman there for a second.
Yeah, it's all right.
I mean, it's nice to know somebody else loves Bateman as much as I do, because I felt like I was on an island by myself for a little while there. But because I remember I was talking to somebody the last show I did with Dynasty Junkie Rocky. The other guest that was on there with me said, he wasn't super impressed because every time he kept watching Rashad Bateman, Tyler Johnson kept, popping out on the screen to him. I'm like, he must not. And it's a technical wide receiver thing. That's why Bateman just appeals to me so much. He does everything so well. He's not going to be, he's not going to go ahead and beat out Jamar Chase in terms of ceiling, but I would say if the COVID doesn't hold him back, Rashad Bateman is by far the safest draft pick, or the safest wide receiver in this class, and probably the safest wide receiver outside of CeeDee Lamb in the last multiple draft classes, probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't fall in the draft, I just pray for top 100 draft capital. He's pretty much almost a bulletproof guy.
Yeah. But yeah, Terrace Marshall could absolutely be my number 3 if he was a top 15 or 20 pick, unless Chase ends up being a top 10 pick. That's the only way I can move Chase, or not Chase, Waddle or Smith. If they were top 10 picks, that's the only way I can move them potentially over Marshall.
Makes sense.
That's a homer take, because I can say pretty confidently, like, even while I was watching Marshall, he was not the player that impressed me the most on that field. It was Eric Gilbert. Like everybody, the conversation we're all sick of having about Pitts already, about, this elite generational tight end prospect and how high should you draft a tight end. We're going to be having the exact same conversation about Eric Gilbert in 2023, provided he comes out that year.
I'm excited to see that because the league could use some more tight ends because how bad the tight end production has been in fantasy. It's pretty much bad. It's really bad. It's like your top 3 guys, or you might as well just hope and pray with some rando on your roster.
Right. Everybody was, praising TJ Hawkinson for how well he did in fantasy this year. But if you look at his average production, like in any other year, he's barely a tight end 1, but he was the tight end 5 this year because it's just nobody else was doing anything. It was just that bad.
Yeah. It's been really bad. Rookie talk still. We already covered Rashad Bateman, and I love him. I got a lot of videos on him. I got a lot of content. I could talk about him all day. Another guy you've been wanting to talk about, though, is Javonte Williams.
Man, I didn't even have any thoughts or opinions on Javonte Williams going into this offseason. We had the sign-up sheet for DLF. It was an Excel document, and they wanted us to do rookie breakdowns. And I had only been doing IDP articles up to that point. But my bread and butter with the Dynasty Playbook for so long was incoming rookie breakdowns and doing it for the year before. So I grabbed Najee Harris. I love me some Najee Harris. Just couldn't wait to write an article about him and tell everybody he's in a whole different stratosphere than Travis Etienne. And then I started watching Javonte Williams, and I was just blown away. People really want to harp on the fact that he was never a workhorse running back in college. But the entire time he was in college, he had another running back who's going to be drafted probably a round after him as his co-running back. And they both just were incredibly productive, incredibly efficient. So why not split carries with both of them, keep them both fresh, and just and especially attached to a passing game like Sam Howell and Diane, I can never pronounce his first name right.
Diami
Brown. And I mean, even he wasn't like amazing. And there's another Debbie.
Daz Newsome.
Yes, thank you. It's already getting late for me, and I've been up since yesterday, so I'm starting to lose names real easy. But I mean, why wouldn't you do everything to keep that offense just firing on all cylinders? Michael Carter is fairly impressive in his own right. And he's going to be a great grab in the second round, but that's not who we're talking about. Just Javonte Williams is just so impressive. There's so much to like about his game. I mean, I'd really like to not see him go to a gap run scheme, a zone run scheme. I think he'd do better with man because he has really good vision. But it's what happens. He's like very similar to Najee Harris in that one defender is not going to take him down. Period. He's got amazing contact balance. He's so strong. He just drives through people like it's not even funny. He's actually I got it written down. Let me where did I have it?
Yeah, he's a very tenacious runner, and he sees the field very well in the open field too.
I had a PFF stat that he 720 of his 1168 yards came after contact this past year. He had 75 avoided tackles, which was first for college football. That averaged to almost half a missed tackle per rush. And Tank Bigsby, who's a fairly highly drafted Debbie running back in his own right, was the second place with only 0.35. Javonte Williams is on a whole nother level in terms of being elusive. The only downside to his game is he lacks a top gear. He's not just going to run away from everybody, but who cares? And he's got such a just, I don't even want to say he has a nose for the end zone because I feel like he's got a magnet in his chest just getting dragged into that end zone. He just piles up those touchdowns. I felt like I was being, a little bit ridiculous by bringing up because I wrote an article about him doing the draft breakdown, potentially putting him over ETN. But as we've gone on and more and more and looked at things, I don't know that I could even consider taking ETN over him unless there was just that drastic of a difference in draft capital. Unless the NFL decides to tell me that I'm just plain wrong about ETN, which, I mean, they might. And if San Francisco takes him, then I'll accept that I'm wrong there, because ETN will thrive in his own system. He just will. He's elusive enough to where if the hole is created for him in the way that the zone system will do for him, and he doesn't have to read his blocks in quite the same way, I think he'll be extremely efficient. But I think both in a man system, Javonte Williams edges him out significantly. And I have no problem extrapolating his lack of workhorse usage in college to the NFL being a workhorse running back. And even if he's not, he's already proven that in a 50-50 system, he can be a 1,000+ yard rushing running back. So who cares?
Yeah, he's got that floor in the receiving game too to
absolutely
buoy his stats and make him a safer prospect. So that'll help him out.
And he's a very good run blocker. He needs a little, or not run blocker, he's a very good pass blocker. He needs a little bit of work on technique, but in terms of just strength and anchoring himself and just doing a good job of squaring to his opponent, the defender, he does a very good job. I mean, he's got everything there to be a true 3-down back. So I'm enamored. I'm going to take him everywhere I get the chance to. And it'll be between him and Bateman, because them's my babies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bateman's a big one for me. I'm not really big on this running back class. Like, I feel like if I'm running back, I'm going to take my picks and package up for one of the top running backs from last year's class. I feel like that's a smart move. Maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire-ish type player. See where that lands me, because I don't think I'll be able to land many of those trades, because I think people are going to want to.
Yeah, people have got their claws on them dug in real tight.
Yeah, so I don't think that's real. Yeah, I don't think that's highly likely unless someone really loves Najee or somebody. But I'm not against taking them either.
It doesn't help that you're putting out videos saying things like, "Is DeAndre Swift the next RB1?"
Yeah, it doesn't help at all. Like those clickbait titles, just trying to reel people in, and it does not help at all.
You getting everybody hyped up. You're making it harder for us.
That's true. Definitely true. Is there any late round guys that you're trying to peg in third and fourth round that are your babies?
Normally I do. But this year, there's nobody that's really that interesting to me. There's guys like Tutu Atwell that I'd like to take a shot on, but I'm not super in love with. It's just a bunch of guys that I'm kind of interested in. There's nobody that I guess Tamori. I don't know how far Tamori Terry is going, and how far. Oh God, I'm losing another name. It's another T last name, and I'm
T last name.
Yeah,
T at Kadarius Toney.
No, I am not a Toney fan at all.
Me neither.
I'm gonna get some heat for that, but he just does not impress me.
Yeah, I'm not a Toney guy either.
He's just he screams a guy that's gonna be. He's gonna have a lot of people hyping him up because of the highlight reels. And just, it's all the plays in between that he just does not impress me. But let's see, who's the? Oh, Tylan Wallace, but he's still kind of a mid-second guy. Let's see, who's farther down? Kylan Hill's a guy I like. I think he's got some potential upside that's real interesting.
Yeah, one thing I like about him is he's had some Devy value last couple of years, and he's pegged as one of the top backs, and. Just because he was productive during his earlier seasons for him, Mississippi State, right? So that's what I like about him is just he had that clout, that Devy clout, and he's going to be cheap.
Right. And I was actually wrong. Daz Newsome is coming out this year. I don't know how I missed that. I guess I missed
he's
it
an
when
older prospect.
Yeah. Man, I'm just all over the place tonight then. But I do like Daz Newsome, and I think we're looking at some other guys in the third round area. Jamar Jefferson is a guy I've liked a lot what I've seen, but I haven't had the opportunity to dig in fully on him to say for sure that I'm in love. But he's definitely a guy I'd be willing to take a flyer on if I just was just randomly I was on the clock and I'm like, everybody I want's gone. He's the guy I'd probably grab.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Like, I watch his tape and he does a lot of good things. And then you look at his production. He broke out his freshman season, and then I think the following year, he was injured or something. And then this year he had a really good year. And I liked his tape too. Like he sees the hole well and moves very well. But he failed his combine not his combine, but his pro day pretty bad. I wasn't expecting it. Like, I was expecting him to have be a little bit more explosive. I wasn't expecting him to be a burner or anything, but I didn't expect him to complete fail it either.
I really wonder if a lot, because Brevin Jordan had the same problem where we were expecting just these super athletic numbers and we were completely disappointed. I wonder if it's not somehow connected to COVID and being less capable of, especially during the season, not being in as good a shape as you want to be. And I think that to kind of hop back and touch on something we were talking about earlier with Rashad Bateman, I think part of the reason why he's fallen so far in draft circles is because he had a poor 2021 or a poor 2020 season. But I had somebody bring it up, and I can't for the life of me remember who it is, but they brought up it's like these college players don't have the money to have these, expensive home gyms and workout programs and stuff like that. And if the school's not holding it, then they're very well could have fallen out of shape. And especially the Big Ten just kind of jumped in and said, hey, we're going to have a season. Let's go play. So he was not prepared, and he was not seasoned like he would have been through a whole off season worth of work. And I think that could very well be affecting some of these combine performances, especially in these smaller schools or in these less affluent programs like Miami used to be, this hugely funded program. But I feel like, it's not quite the same stature as it used to be. And Oregon State with Jefferson is, Oregon State,
yeah, it's not a powerhouse.
They're working out in somebody's backyard.
Yeah, and if you're not really out there in your facilities training or whatever, like, this stuff deteriorates quicker than what you think too. So,
right, and these guys who are already mid-round prospects, especially like a Jamar Jefferson, they can't afford, like, the agent's not going to pay for it if they don't think that they're going to be a high enough draft prospect to pay it back. So, and that's kind of, I've wondered about that for a long time, at how much of, pre-draft, these projected draft ranges affect combine performances or preparation for combine performances, separating these like big school, big name guys from these small school guys that could be, that could have done a lot better with more advanced training.
Yeah, definitely. It made everything all weird throughout the season, before the season, and now getting up here. Like, you only have so much time after season with the training institutes, and these guys are already lagged before the season started from their training regiments, that it's not like they're trying to get back to 100. They were never at 100 in August, so that makes sense. And especially smaller school guys. I'm not even saying small school, like the mid-tier college football, mid-tier Power Fives. Those guys are like even at an even more disadvantage because they don't have all the luxuries.
Right, and and that's the other problem with pro days, is they're so inaccurate. I think it was the Dynasty Nerds. I was listening to one of their things joking about LSU's pro days, they were running the 39-yard dash.
Mm-hmm.
But what about these other programs that potentially are running a 41-yard dash? And that's, that can easily add a tenth of a second to a 40 and turn a really respectable 40 into, okay, it's all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to play with the puppy.
Yeah, I got two of them. I got a small Cavalier and a German Shepherd.
I got three of them. I got a Beagle. That's my fat little buddy. And then we got a Malamute Australian Shepherd mix. And then we got he's a real pretty dog. He's real fluffy. And then we have my little princess who's, I don't know if you know what a whippet is. It's kind of like a mini greyhound. She's a mix of that and a lab. And she's gorgeous.
That's a fun dog. Then a mix of that and a lab. That's awesome.
And she knows exactly how pretty she is too. She poses like a model all over the house.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. That's sweet.
But now, is it time to do my favorite part of any podcast?
Yeah, let's go off topic. I put this in there because I wanted you to feel at home. I wanted some Dynasty Playbook in here. I just wanted you to reminisce. And it's off topic. I just have some random snack cakes in here. But I know you're going to go ham once we start talking about it. So I got 3 random snack cakes in here. You see it here. Moon Pie, Star Crunch, Fudge Rounds. Can you rank those 3 for me? And tell me how you like it.
Star Crunch, Fudge Rounds, Moon Pies. And a lot of people from where I'm from are gonna be cursing my name for putting moon pies at the bottom because we have a whole parade where they throw moon pies at us and they're
whoa.
Yeah, but it's just the graham cracker's too thick. I mean, graham cracker, whatever it is, it's just the ratio's not good. If it had more marshmallow, I'd be about it. But it's just it's too dry and too crumbly, and I'm not for it. Star Crunch. The reason I put Star Crunch so high is it's nostalgia because I haven't been able to eat it in so long because I had terrible, just wrecked hillbilly teeth for so long that I couldn't tear it apart, and now I wear dentures that I've got implants, but I gotta wait for it to heal before I can start clicking them in. So I haven't been able to tear apart a Star Crunch in a long time to get into one, but I'm looking forward to it. And the Fudge Round, it's funny that you put the Fudge Round on the list because on the Dynasty Playbook, probably about 6, 7, 8 months ago, we decided to list our top 3 Little Debbie snacks. And I put Fudge Rounds in my top 3, and my original former co-host, Tyler Huggins, who's my oldest and best friend in the Dynasty space, awesome dude, gave me so much crap for having Fudge Rounds in my top 3. He's like, they're so basic. What are you doing? And it was just because I was eating a lot of Fudge Rounds at the time, and so I let that cloud my judgment. But the top 3 Little Debbie snacks, definitive list: Swiss cake roll number 1, zebra cake / zebra roll at number 2. Doesn't matter what form they're in, they're excellent. And then number 3, frosted fudge cakes. I will stick to that list, and you can call me out on that. I will fight you.
I like them all, actually. I mean, there's not many that I don't. What are some god awful ones? Because I can't think of them. That is where I don't like things with coconut.
Yeah, me either. I don't like coconut at all.
Coconut stuff is something I would avoid.
I don't like the flavor. I don't like the texture. I don't like any of it.
What are those Little Debbie's? They're like upside down cakes. They're long and they got kind of like the strawberry filling in them. Like they're all right, but there's something I rarely ever select because like you have zebra cakes there. I'm gonna go there. You have the cake rolls. I'm gonna go there. I can pivot to maybe those cruller donuts that are off to the side or something. Like, but I'm never gonna go with those. I don't know what they're called, but those strawberry shortcake, like at Little Debbie's, like they're good, but I'm just not gonna pivot to them.
I would say another one that's not bad. It's a whole classification of them, but they're pretty mid. Like I've never picked them for myself. Or all of the holiday themed ones because they're all essentially the same, and they're just kind of basic. And they're like a zebra cake, but not quite as good. That's just it's just not worth getting.
Like the Christmas trees.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Christmas trees, like they do some for St. Patrick's Day and Valentine's Day, and it's all the same crap. It just is. And I noticed in the list you skipped over eggnog, and I've got to share this little nugget because it just goes to prove how extreme my eggnog love is. Because every time of the year when it starts rolling around, the eggnog comes in, I get super excited. That's my signifier that the holiday season is here. I take pictures of it when I find it at the store. I send it to my wife. But this year I found eggnog ice cream at Walmart, and I filled my freezer up with it, and I am still eating eggnog ice cream in April.
I bet that's like a smooth, buttery taste.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And it hasn't. There's almost no freezer burn to it at all. It's stayed great. It's really it's soft. Like it's not real hard, so it's easy to go through with a spoon. You let it melt a little bit and just good job, generic Walmart brand eggnog ice cream. You guys nailed it.
What's your thoughts on Peeps?
Waste time.
Yeah, like it's a styrofoam mushroom type deal. And
yeah, it's not an appealing texture. If I want marshmallow flavor, I'm gonna make me a fluffernutter. That's the way to go.
That makes sense. You might have saw on Twitter, but I made this thing where I took Rice Krispies and I put peanut butter and I threw it on the smoker, and I made Rice Krispie treats out of it. But it had that smoke taste, so it kind of had a campfire feel when you put it in your mouth. Because we had Peeps, I didn't want to eat Peeps, but we had them, so I had to do something with them. So what it is, I had a bed of Peeps, then I covered it in Rice Krispies. And then another bed of Peeps on top, and then I put pads of butter on there, and I threw it on the smoker at like 250 with, I think, maybe applewood, some random wood I had, and put it on there for like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, let it all melt, and then mix it together, let it harden a little bit, cut it in squares, and that was pretty solid. It was pretty much a Rice Krispie with that marshmallow Peep taste, and then you got a campfire taste on the back end.
Yeah, I imagine it being heated up, you lose a lot of that styrofoam texture that makes it so unappealing.
Yeah, it's gone.
I wonder if that wouldn't work even better with Nutella.
Amazing. Like maybe have like a Nutella at the top.
Yeah.
Like kind of like a hard thing. That would have been amazing. I love Nutella.
I'm getting some rumblies in my tumblies.
Yeah, I'm big on Nutella. Are you a barbecue guy at all?
I'm not super good at it, but I like to. I mainly just grill burgers. I have this. I mean, it's kind of a family recipe. It's my dad created it, and now I do. So it's a second generation family recipe. But it's just this really good barbecue sauce. It's homemade. Barbecue sauce, mustard, ketchup, brown sugar, some hot sauce, and some cilantro and basil, and it comes out super good. You put it on there as soon as you drop it on the grill, you lather the top, you get it just enough to where you start cooking the bottom, flip it, coat it again. You don't marinate it, because if you marinate it overdoes the flavor, but it's just so good.
It glazes it.
Exactly. And it slows the cook enough to where, like, I like my burgers medium rare, so it makes it easier to get that medium rare without ending up with it being borderline raw. Because I've definitely been like, that's close enough. I'll put that in a bun, and oh god, that's a little brown on the outside, and that's all red. Yeah. And I've eaten an entire raw hamburger before because I have no concern for my long-term health.
Me too. I do that. I'm not gonna shy away from that or let it go to waste for sure. I'm big into like brisket, and I do pulled pork. I don't like pulled pork a lot, but people like it.
Right.
And I'm really good at ribs too. Beef ribs are pretty. I like doing beef ribs too because those are real pretty too. They're really pretty picture, but I'm pretty good at regular ribs. I have my own barbecue sauce too. It's cherry, so I got cherries in it, a lot of brown sugar, Worcestershire sauce, and a lot of other stuff. But it's super sweet, and it's really good with like pulled pork and stuff because it makes it like it's kind of a sweeter meat type deal. A lot of rendered fat in it. And just the sweetness from the cherries, the brown sugar, the ketchup that's in it. It's a good mix.
I'm about some ribs. I couldn't eat ribs for a long time, and I'm just now getting adjusted enough to the dentures to where I can eat ribs. I'm so excited to get some good ribs because it's like the last time I had ribs, it was just like this chain restaurant, like slathered their garbage barbecue sauce on it. The best ribs I've ever had every single time have been dry rub ribs. I don't even need a sauce. But I have yet to be able to replicate said dry rub myself. And nowhere that like a restaurant sells dry rub rib. Everywhere wants to slather it in barbecue sauce and make it as messy as possible. Nah, slow cook it, use the dry rub, make it taste right.
Do you like them sweet or do you like them with heat or a mix?
A little bit of both. If I'm doing the sauce, I like sweet, but with the dry rub, it's more of a little bit of heat and then some tang.
That makes sense.
Kind of like a little bit of lemon pepper type of flavor. But there's something in it I haven't been able to identify, because if I did, I could recreate it myself. But one of my sergeants made it for us. We did a big cookout when I was in the Marine Corps, and it was just awesome. And it's that those ribs have been stuck in my head for like 8 years.
Yeah, I like to I like to make my own rubs, and they're usually different every single time. But depending on who I'm catering for, like family, I'll go a little sweeter for kids and stuff. Right. Myself, I'll mix it up. One thing I did one time is for pork chops, and instead of like using oil or mustard as a binder, it was like a pork steak, I used hot sauce as a binder, and then I put my rub on, and it was a very sweet rub. So I had hot sauce binder, and then I put a sweet rub on top, and then I smoked it slow, and then it got a nice little bark on top. And then when I bit into it, I immediately got the sweetness. It was sweet in meat, and then in the back portion, I got the heat. And it was like a major like two-tone type of taste.
What kind of hot sauce do you use?
I mix it up. Whatever I get really at the store. Frank's, the one Cholula stuff. I live in Ohio. I don't really have much access. I have to like order it special if I have to.
Right.
I'm interested in Dodson Poirier's hot sauce. I may buy some of that. The hot sauce just because I like him as a fighter, but nothing really fancy. I got some random stuff that I got some random stores, but I don't know what they really are. But nothing special. You're down south, so you're probably got them more to your disposal.
We got Louisiana hot sauce. I mean, it's just called Louisiana hot sauce. That's my favorite. I had guys that actually would send that out to me when I was on deployment. And then Crystal's hot sauce is just really good too. It's a solid flavor. I'll do Tapatio every once in a while, just to mix it up. It's got a different kind of bite to it. But I don't get super adventurous with my hot sauce. Normally, I find ones I like and I just stick with them. But since you brought up Ohio and you got to bring up all the other food topics, I'm going to bring up one for you. What's your stance on Skyline Chili?
Skyline Chili, I'm kind of weird when I go there. Have you had it before?
I have.
Okay. When I go there, I like to get their cheese fries and cover it in their hot sauce. And I love the mixture of their cheese. And when that hot sauce like kind of soaks into that cheese, that's kind of the main thing to get. And I do the same thing with the hot dogs. I don't get chili on it. I get just the cheese dogs, and I cover it in hot sauce. It's kind of different from anyone you talk to, but I love the taste of the mix of the hot sauce and the cheese together and how that goes. And their cheese is different because they cut it fresh. They shred it fresh. And then their hot sauce, it's kind of it's like something it's their brand. It's not special. You can put any type in there, but how it mixes with their cheese, it's so good.
Yeah, most people I know from Ohio have pretty strong stances about Skyline Chili, so I was just curious if you were another one of them.
I like the cheese and the hot sauce. I'm not really over the moon. Like it's not like a love it. I'm not a chili person really.
Yeah,
because the chili, it's the liquid meat. It's kind of like I feel like I always, when I eat it, in the back of my mind is like the diarrhea is coming afterwards. Why do I do this when I
I
get a
mean,
burger steak? That
fire butts just sometimes it's just the price you pay to enjoy a meal. I mean, sometimes it's worth it though. You just gotta bring some ointment. Put it on the beehole when you're done.
The thing about Ohio, we also have Gold Star chili, which is pretty much a straight carbon copycat, and I don't see why no one brings that up in conversation because it's almost like the same thing, and it's pretty prominent around the Cincinnati area. But everyone likes Skyline.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's so popular that even I know about it, and I've been to Cincinnati all of one single time.
Have you tried it already?
What's that?
Have you tried it? Did you like it, or did you just thought it was normal?
It wasn't anything to write home about. It wasn't, I've had Texas chili, and Texas does chili real good. So it's a different type of chili. It's done entirely different. It's way more meat based, and it's not just slopped ground beef and it's just it respects the meat a lot better. Is I guess the way to put it.
They do barbecue really good down there, and then they got like good Mexican food. That's a good hot spot for food. That
it really is.
Like I like Tex-Mex and Texas and authentic Mexican food. Like tamales, I do not get those at all up here. There's none. You cannot get a good tamale. So I was in Mexico a few years ago, and this one guy was cooking tamales in a trash can. I bought one, and it was like one of the greatest things I ever had in my life. I'll never get one of those again.
We have a taco truck in the parking lot of our local junkyard, and it is the best taco I've ever had. So me and my friend, he works on cars quite a lot, so we end up at the junkyard a decent amount of time. But every single time we go, we bookmark time to go get us some street tacos.
Oh yeah.
But you're actually where you're at. You're not too far away from North Carolina, who's got it's not the same type of barbecue, but they have some pretty damn good barbecue there too. Now theirs is more vinegar based, but still damn good. You get I hate coleslaw normally. North Carolina is the only place I've ever found coleslaw that I enjoy.
Yeah. It's cool that different regions of the country has like different types of barbecue. You kind of got the Memphis area, you got the Kansas area, you got Texas. Ohio's not really good with food. Ohio's like your basic chain restaurants, your Olive Gardens. Yeah, it's like there's nothing really.
We don't disrespect the Olive Garden here.
It is good.
Fancy Italian cooking.
That is good. I love the breadsticks.
I do too. You mix the breadsticks with some Alfredo dipping sauce, you got me. I'm sold. I will be basic and white all day long for some breadsticks.
It's just nothing like it. I mean, that's probably why you hear Ohioans just talk about Skyline, because it's like the only thing they got to really write home out, because everything else everyone's got because of the chain.
Right. Nobody wants to talk about McDonald's.
Yeah. And Ruby Tuesday.
Have you ever had a Whataburger?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, come down here and get some Whataburger. They've got some really just on point burgers. Tyler will tell you about it. Tyler loves some Whataburger.
I would love it. From what I've heard, from what I've seen on pictures and stuff, I've never had In-N-Out either. We don't have that.
We don't either. That's West Coast stuff. That's way out there.
Do you guys have Five Guys?
Yep. I eat so much Five Guys. It is so bad for you. Like I can feel the grease lubing my digestive tract on its way down. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's the only burger chain of that caliber we have up here is Five Guys. Really,
I like Five Guys better than Whataburger. Tyler may hate that take, but Five Guys is just. There's just something so simple and enjoyable about a double cheeseburger with a little bit of mayo on it, and I mean you get the Cajun fries. They're nice and spicy, and they're none of them are like so burnt that you gotta crunch through them all the way. I like having soft fries, but they give you so many of them. They fill up the little cup of fries, and then they just dump a bunch extra in the bag, and it's just something so basic, or not basic, but so primal about it that I enjoy it. It's just, I know what I'm doing is horrible for my body, and I don't care. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy it.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. There's a lot of places like that. But energy drinks, where are you at on those?
I am pretty much solely a Monster drinker now. I've drank, I haven't drank all the new like varieties of Monster, but for the first probably 15 years of their existence, or not 15 years, they've been around for about 15 years. So probably about the first 10 years of their existence, I drank every different type of Monster they produced and had some sort of stance on it. The original M80, which they kind of reproduced, I was a huge fan of. It was a citrus drink. They had Assault, which, for those of you who remember, it was a black and gray camouflage can with a red M. That was, I don't even know what flavor it was. It was just red flavored, but it had such a bite to it that it woke you up before the caffeine even hit your system. But now I'm pretty strictly a green Monster guy, but that is because my favorite energy drink they stopped producing in probably 2012, 2013 is No Fear, which absolute favorite. If you could get me a pallet of No Fear, you have no idea what I would pay to get that.
Oh yeah, because I remember that. I barely remember the taste. I remember the bite to it too.
Yep.
I remember that.
I love that bite. Like Red Bull has that same bite, but Red Bull wants $4.50 for a can of Red Bull. Like, let's be real here. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, because it's an energy drink, not like caviar or champagne or anything.
Right. Like, it's not getting me drunk. Let's calm down.
Yeah, I just want to do my work a little faster, not like act like I'm rich. Yeah, I like it. I like mixing it up. I don't have anything I really cling to. I like Monsters. Those are one of my favorites. I like a lot of bangs. There's some shitty bangs too. I like the birthday cake flavor is like the worst thing ever. That
sounds horrible.
That is horrible. It's like carbonated vanilla, just straight down your throat. It is the worst one. Key lime pie right here. That's all right. I just happen to have it. About a couple other ones just because they're at the dollar store and they're usually like $2 a pop or something. And I'll pick those up. There's a lot I like. I like those Monsters. They're like kind of water. They're flavored water Monsters.
I've never had those. I've seen them, but I always just figured it didn't have enough caffeine to make it worth it.
Yeah, they're like Powerade actually. And well, I had a job where I had to like commute an hour. Stay hydrated and have a lot of caffeine, and I had to figure out how to take in a lot of caffeine without overdosing. I was so tired. I'd get up at 3 and come home at 6.
Caffeine pills. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So I'd pick up those randomly from time to time, and they're all right. They taste good. Good alternative to Powerade if you want some caffeine with it.
Yeah. See, I had to do caffeine pills because if I drink too much Monster, it makes me have to pee really quick in succession. I have a tiny little girl bladder, and it makes road trips horrible because I got to stop every 10 minutes and pee. So I have to like watch my intake, and I have to stick to like 5-hour energies and caffeine pills instead of drinking a ton of Monster. But it's funny that the birthday cake bang you mentioned, if it wasn't carbonated and it was probably a little milkier, like more in the style of like a Java Monster, that'd probably be pretty banging.
That probably would be on that spectrum, yeah. Or maybe, like a coffee Monster type, Starbucks type deal with birthday cake taste. That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, instead of like an energy drink, kind of weird tasting.
Right. Yeah, that's what I want. I want fizzy coffee.
Yeah, they also had like a root beer one that was god awful. It tasted like cough syrup. It was horrible.
Man. You don't like cough syrup?
I do when I'm wanting it or anticipating it.
Somebody didn't robo trip when they were in high school.
Yeah, but not when I'm expecting root beer. or a nice dad's root beer or something type taste, and then I get like a cough syrup.
I'm sorry, but did you just reference Dad's root beer as if that was the epitome of root beer? There is Barks root beer, and then there is everybody else.
Barks is good too.
Barks is the shit.
It is a good one. Yes, that was the first that came out in my head.
Y'all don't get the Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure y'all don't get the Barks red cream soda up there, do you?
I've seen it before. I don't know if it's. I don't think I've seen it lately though.
It's sometimes I've seen it outside of the South, but it's a fairly regional thing, like Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, because Barks is like headquartered out of Louisiana.
You know what? I haven't seen Barks for a while too, maybe even a few years. I don't think I've really seen them that much.
I mean, I haven't left the South in a couple of years, so I have no idea what other places stores look like.
Really, the only thing I've seen root beer wise is maybe A&W.
A&W and Mug.
Yeah, and Mug. Maybe some Dads and some generic gas stations.
Yeah,
and maybe I can see a Bargs there too, but I haven't seen them for a long time.
I will say the hardest thing for me over the last year was I drink vanilla Coke as my primary soda, and they stopped producing it because there was a shortage of aluminum cans, so they really were just producing the main flavors of Coke. And they slowly started reintroducing it, but I could get it 45 minutes to the west of my house. I could get it 45 minutes to the east of my house. I could not get it in anywhere of my town. It was super frustrating. Like the last time my dad visited, I had him bring me 4 12-packs of vanilla Coke in the cans and 4 6-packs of the vanilla Coke in the bottles. Like, and granted, I go through a lot of soda, so that's not quite as much soda as you think it is.
Oh wow, yeah, that's the same here. We run through soda pretty good. 12 packs.
I was on the zero sugar vanilla Coke, so that was helping me lose weight, but they just stopped making that altogether. So that sucks. Going back to the corn syrup and being fat, but
back in 2008, they had a cherry chocolate Dr. Pepper that I went crazy on.
I feel like they re-released that because I feel like I've seen that recently. You said cherry vanilla Dr. Pepper, right?
Cherry chocolate.
Oh, cherry! I remember that. But no, I definitely haven't seen that. Yeah,
chocolate. Yeah, it was out for like.
That's like they did the blue Pepsi back in like 2005, back when I was like a teenager. That was like a super unique flavor, and I was all about it. And then they just stopped making it.
Yeah, never again.
Like it's like they hate us.
Like they can't even like roll it out for 3 months.
Right, you can't do like a special anniversary edition for 1 month every year. Like, no, just go to hell. Drink Pepsi or die. Bruce froze. Now I'm here by myself. Hey, everybody. I don't know what to say.
There
he is.
Yeah, the internet just kicked off. So
I talked to everybody for a second by myself, and I let them know that Bruce was gone.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Filled in that time. That's awesome. All right,
it wasn't productive. Let's not get it twisted.
If we got anybody still hanging on this late in the game, they're probably enjoying the show anyways.
This is pretty indicative of me joining a podcast, going way over the regular time limit. I am known to just run my mouth.
All right. Well, I think that's everything. You ready to phone this one in?
I feel like we've been phoning it in for the last half hour.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to the show. Bruce. You can catch me on Twitter at Metric Scout. This is Drew Dodson on Twitter at Drew Dodson NFL. Do you have anything you want to plug before we head out?
Hey, if you guys are doing IDP, really suggest whatever articles you want to at Sticky Z on Twitter, at Drew Dodson NFL, at Tom Kislingberry. If you got ideas for articles or things you want to see done, we'd love to hear from you, because it's just, we want to produce what you guys want to see. And as much as we can try and imagine what that is, it's way easier to just have you guys tell us. That's my biggest thing I'm working on right now.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys for listening to the show. You guys stay classy, and we'll catch you next time.